Back here on the GSMC Chip Shot Football Podcast to talk more about the number one overall pick, Caleb Williams. It's all, everything's been said about Caleb Williams except Roger Goodell announcing his name on that podium come April 25th when he is expected to be drafted to the Bears. And it's a foregone conclusion at this point. We've talked about that, their meetings, their pro days, the combine, everything. But now more people, in all honesty, have to find something to talk about with Caleb Williams. And it seems like that with this story, this comment that was made from Greg McElroy, a former NFL quarterback and ESPN analyst, questioned how much adversity Caleb Williams has faced up to this point in his college career that will correlate, somehow lead to success in the NFL. On the Kevin Clark podcast, he had Greg McElroy on, and his quote was that Caleb Williams has never experienced adversity. I do wonder, is there a sense of entitlement? Is there the chip on the shoulder that's going to keep him going 10 to 12 years down the road the way it does Mahomes? Caleb Williams saw this, a lot of people saw this, and Caleb Williams took it to his Twitter account where he responded with a very well thought out post, I should say. Very organized if you haven't seen it. He said, let's go back to school. Let's go back to school again. Laughing emoji, shaking my head emoji, because I'm bored right now. Adversity, then he goes on to define it, a state or instance of serious or continued difficulty or misfortune. Then he lays out year 1, year 2, year 3 of college. Year 1, didn't start freshman year. Year 2, popped hammy, championship game. First quarter, lost because of my hammy. Then year 3, 7-5 record my last year of college ball. Touching more on that year 2, he suffered that injury in the championship game, the Pac-12 championship game against Utah. He hurt his hamstring, and then if you saw that game or saw anything about it, the box score, highlights, whatever, you saw that it really hindered his play because everything that's been said about Caleb Williams up to this point, out of the pocket, extending plays, magical plays that just keep drives alive. If your hamstring is dragging you back, holding you back, it takes away a lot of your game. A good percentage of how you play is now gone. So in that, they lost the game. He couldn't be himself, and that hindered their performance, his performance in that game. Then last year, they weren't particularly great, 7-5, like I mentioned, and there were some highs, a lot of high-scoring games. He made a lot of plays, but their defense wasn't really there. Just record-wise, it was all right. So there is stuff to deal with that. You have to deal with how you monitor the locker room, the morale, keeping everybody's head in it. That's some adversity. To me, it is. Year 2, I don't really have to explain it. Getting all the way to the championship, then having an injury holds you back. More adversity you have to deal with. Not starting the freshman year. A lot of quarterbacks don't really start their freshman year, don't have a great freshman year, but it is adversity. I'll give him that one as well. And it is just interesting because with this comment from Greg McElroy, not focusing on adversity and having it almost correlate or just lead to success in the NFL is where he loses me a little bit. He didn't really flat out come out and say that if you have no adversity, you're not going to have success, but he painted it that way when he said it, the quotes. He mentioned entitlement in there, not having the chip on your shoulder that'll keep you going 10 to 12 years, like Patrick Mahomes. If he makes it sound like you need some of that to be a great Hall of Fame quarterback, it could help. It does certainly mold you and teach you life lessons. I'm not going to deny that. It teaches you how to get over certain hurdles, some things that don't go your way, overcoming that. I fully understand that, but I don't think it's a criteria or a prerequisite of having success in the NFL. All of these players are obviously different. Each of them are going to forge their own path. some things are out of their control on how their careers end up. Team decisions, players being traded, salary cap, things like that. That also has a big play on how certain players, their careers play out. If their best wide receiver is traded away, they make cuts to another team, they can't figure out a contract with their quarterback. Look at Dak Prescott. He now could be moving on from the Cowboys if they don't figure out something there. There's a lot of external factors that could affect someone's career as well. This is a decent part of it, but I don't think it's that big a part for him to come out and say something like that. It all just seems to fall in line with, if you've seen it in the media, just critics coming out and saying things about Caleb when it just seems like there's really not much to talk about when Caleb is certainly going to go to the Bears. People almost are reaching for something to talk about with Williams, trying to bring something up. I'll give an example. Merrill Hodge said in February that he said that Caleb Williams isn't special. Taylor Lewan also said he didn't get a good vibe from Caleb Williams at the NFL Combine. He explained it, but then again, saying that you don't get a good vibe from him, what does that have to do? What does that mean, really, when you're talking about a quarterback? He certainly, to my knowledge, hasn't met him, hasn't really talked to him as much as like all these teams have. So what does that have to do with really anything that Caleb can be as a player, as a person, if you've never met him or just going off of what he said at the Combine? That's another thing that happened. And also when he was at the USC game, I want to say, it was the women's USC game, I'm pretty sure, and they were making fun of it. There was all those memes coming out about Caleb Williams having a pink cover on his phone, questioning if his nails were painted or not, and things like that. People were just poking fun at it. I took it pretty lightheartedly. I didn't think it was too serious, but again, some people did. If you look up just on social media how some people reacted to it, some people took it a bit more serious and pushed back on people just leaving Caleb Williams alone, stop questioning him on what he does, on stuff that holds no real value, like whatever phone case he has, color phone case, what he does with his nails or something like that. I didn't think it was too serious, but some people responded to it, and bringing things up like that, I do see why. Those things don't matter. As long as he's playing great, what does it really matter what he's doing? Unless he's doing bad things, illegal stuff outside of football, whatever he does, whatever he feels like doing, I'm sure any team would be fine with. And the biggest point with all of this, with people on the outside trying to criticize Caleb, trying to pick at things, to find things to talk about, the only opinion and the only evaluation of Caleb on whatever he does that matters is from the Chicago Bears. They've had numerous meetings with him. They've taken him to multiple dinners and seen him on his pro day. They finally got his medicals, brought him in for an official visit. All that stuff matters to just the Bears, what they think of him. And from all the reports and all the news that have been coming out, nothing but positive has come from Chicago. It seems like they really love the kid. They brought in players on their current roster right now to meet him, interact with him. Nothing has been said negatively about him. So in all just general view of this, the only thing that really matters is what the Bears think of him, and he's been acing everything that they've been putting him through. And also with all of this, it's not most players that are big players, huge players that are coming out of college, most of them face their biggest adversities, if you think about it, as pro players. If you faced all of this, just things you have to get over in college, in your life before that, you don't really see a lot of people coming in with all of that experience. I'm sure it helps them grow as people if they have, but it's not really common in every player that comes in through college to have all of these life-changing pivot moments in their life. You're making one of the biggest jumps in your professional career as a person, becoming a professional football player, going into the NFL, then learning how to become an adult, how to be a leader when you're so young. That's when all the adversity comes in. That's when you have to learn some of your biggest lessons. You're going to have some massive failures, big learning curves, adjusting to not maybe liking some of the people you work with. That all comes with maturing and becoming a professional. To say that he hasn't faced enough adversity before and questioning that, I think is a bit of a reach when he's making such a huge jump like this. Now is when we're going to see the adversities, the problems, maybe dealing with injuries, stuff like that. Becoming a professional, that's where we're going to see things, and then that's where we can evaluate him on getting over those adversities, growing from it, learning from it. I think it's way too premature to jump on him now and say, oh, you don't have a big chip on your shoulder because you haven't had a massive life changing moment to happen to you, adversity to happen, when he has had some of those things happen to him. So it didn't really make too much sense for me. His ways, I'll certainly say, are a little bit unorthodox. It's not, it doesn't flow with the current trend, history we've seen with some players. So, okay, it's a little bit different. People don't really like change, so it could rub people the wrong way. But again, with NIL and with this whole new generation coming up, growing up through paying people in NIL, through NIL, and in college, all these athletes, I think, on a bigger topic, are just going to be more outspoken, unorthodox, do things their way. And why shouldn't they if they're getting paid for it? Colleges are benefiting off of their name, image, and likeness. Why wouldn't they be more outspoken and try to take reign of their career? Caleb's really the first person to surprise a lot of people with the way he does things. But if people are upset now, it's going to get a lot worse, and people are not going to like it a lot more later on. You already see it with Dion, Shador, Travis Hunter, him saying they're not going to go to certain teams, certain cities, it's not going to flow. That's just going to grow and grow more because of all this money being flowed into these players. The transfer portal and all that, that's a whole nother topic. But this is the new kind of players that come into the league and this sort of change that has been brought in with NIL and things like that. So I'm not saying people should be happy about it, but just that this is where it's going. Caleb's the first one to do it with so much notoriety and so much fame, really, in college. He does things differently. People are taken back by it. They try to criticize these players more and more, but it's just a trend. It is going to grow more and more in college and these players coming through. So you don't have to like it, but it is coming in my estimation. So try and find some peace in mind with these changes that these players are coming into the NFL with. But that's where it stands with Caleb Williams. I didn't think those comments were warranted, but again, he'll just have to prove it out on the field, and that's how you quiet all these critics. So that's where that stands on those comments from Greg McElroy on Caleb Williams, his response, what I think of it. Let me know what you guys think also with his situation and those comments. Were they out of line? I would love to know what you guys think. But I have run out of time on today's episode. I want to thank you guys for tuning in to today's episode of the GSMC Chip Shot Football Podcast, presented by the GSMC Sports Network. Remember to like, follow, and subscribe to the show as well as the network in itself. Also follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok for more of this network's content outside of sports as well. If you want to see more of me and this show's content, check out the GSMC Sports Network channel and the Podcast Network channel on YouTube for YouTube shorts that are posted on there, full recorded live shows that are all on there as well, on top of individually recorded segment videos from the live shows. If you want to go back and watch a specific segment, or if you missed one and want to catch up on it, all of that stuff is on both channels as well. Tune in every weekday at 6:30 p.m. Eastern Time for more NFL and football conversations with me, your host, Manny Maradiaga. Thanking you guys again for joining me, and I'll see you guys tomorrow to close out the week. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Let's go. I wake up to a little bit of drool on my pillow, feel like it's gonna be a bad day. Yeah, I'm tired of shit, and the coffee ain't hit yet, damn, ain't that great. I don't wanna go to